Good day, everybody. Welcome back. And to start today, I first want to give a shout out to Degan because today I am talking about pimples. I don't know if you saw what I did with the name there, but I didn't know if you wanted your name way out there all over the internet. So, well, you got it. But the reason I'm giving her a shout out is because I'm talking about pimples, and that was her first impression of me, was that I gave a message and it had something to do with popping pimples and it squirting all over the mirror. And I'm back on the topic of pimples. I don't know if you can tell, but I got some scarage over here from trying to pop some pimples. In fact, my wife was just in here and she walked up next to me, and not knowing that I had just done this, she just said, "Whoa, what happened to your face?" Which, when someone says that, it's not always the best thing to hear. But sometimes I just get impatient, and sometimes I just get, these gross little suckers that I feel like I just have to pop. And I don't get them all the time, but when they come out, man, do they come out. And I have a real hard time trying not to pop them. Granted, I am a lot better than how I used to be. I mean, now I can see a pimple coming and be like, okay, I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to leave it alone. And, I'm sometimes patient enough to not touch it and they just kind of go away. They kind of dissipate or whatever. But sometimes it's like, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it's when that happens, when I get really impatient, I'm like, I'm going to take care of this today, which is kind of what happened today. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. And today was the day that I thought I would take care of it. And how it usually starts is that I look at it and I say, okay, maybe it's a little bit ready. So I'll start to squeeze. And as soon as I start to squeeze, I'm like, oh yeah, that's not ready. But then I'm like, okay, but maybe I can squeeze it to be ready. You give it a little encouragement or whatever it might be. And so, of course, being a creature of habit, I go back to things that I've always done before or what has worked in the past, and I start to squeeze. And it doesn't work, so I start to squeeze some more and it gets really red. And I'm like, oh, I think there's some juice coming out of there, so I'm going to squeeze a little bit more. But as I'm squeezing that one, I notice there's another one. And so I take a break from that one, I move to a smaller one and I start to squeeze there. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get this one really quick, and it's not going. And so I try harder and harder, and then I go back to the other one. I'm just switching between them both, and they're not popping like they should be. Why can't they just pop like they should pop? Maybe we were not supposed to pop them. But by the end of it, I'm all bruised and bloodied, and I got this to work with. So not good. Then I got scabs, and I pick the scabs and I bleed some more. So it's like this real vicious cycle of just grossness all around. And I get it. Some of you might be asking, why is Steven sharing any of this? Why is he so impatient? Why is he just so gross? Why does his hair look so crazy? But I tell you all this because this is how our relationship with God is a lot of the time. We say to ourselves, God, I think I'm willing to wait on you. That I know this will pass, and I want it to pass. And I want this to happen, and I know you can make those things happen. And I know you're big, and I know you're powerful, and I know you can do big and powerful things. And sometimes we wait. But while we're waiting, we sometimes feel that we can do things to speed up the process, that, we can give God a little nudge and, he'll make those things happen for us. And so we start to do things our way. And stop to think about this for a second. Depending on how big the thing that you're willing to ask God for, or how big the thing is that you're willing to wait, how long are you actually willing to wait? Is it a day? Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? Is it a lifetime? Because sometimes it's a lifetime. Sometimes you never actually see the thing that you want to pass. Sometimes you never see the thing you want to happen. And believe me, when I say when you wait, I'm not just saying that you just don't do anything, but I'm saying you do the right things. Like, for example, with this pimple situation, I'm not just doing anything while I wait. I'm not rubbing grease on it to make it worse, or I'm just it's not gonna matter. God is in control. I'm not saying any of that, but what I am saying is that you wait doing the right things. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to wash it, and I'm going to make sure it stays clean, and I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to, just watch it. And while you wait for God, I pray that you do the right things too, that you seek after him and continue to seek after him. Because if you seek after him, and even if you wait a lifetime for that thing to pass or that thing to happen, at least at the end, you still have gained God. Because really, that's the ultimate prize. God is the ultimate prize. He's not the means to an end, but he's the ultimate end. David was a guy who never lost sight of this. I mean, yeah, sure, David messed up. And when he messed up, he not only hurt himself, but he hurt the people around him. But when he became king, and while he was on that journey to becoming king, he never lost sight of the true king. You know, I was thinking about this idea of waiting on the Lord, waiting on God, waiting for Jesus to do something, because honestly, I think we're all a little tired. I think we're all a little tired of hearing stories and news articles and hearing people talk about, you know, COVID and riots and choosing sides and people fighting and having to make a decision and having to pick a side. And I think we're all just tired of that. And not tired of the issues, but just tired of, you know, those small little things where, why does this person have to be against that person? Like, why can't we just come together and just love each other like brothers and sisters should? Because brothers and sisters fight, but at the end of the day, they still love each other. And I think that's the part that we're weary on. That, like, there's no love in this arguing. There's no love in the discussion. There's no love. It's just either one side or the other side. And we grow tired of it. And while this whole thing is very tiresome and we want it to go back to normal, I don't think normal is what we should be shooting for, because normal wasn't that great. It's only good because of the circumstances now. What I think we should be shooting for is something kingdomly. And so during this whole process of thinking about, you know, waiting and thinking about the kingdom, not just the kingdom we're building here, but the kingdom that's coming down to us, I couldn't help but think about David. Because after David defeated Goliath at 15 years old, he was welcomed into the king's house. King Saul welcomed him into the house, and he had it pretty good for a while. I mean, he had grapes and people serving him grapes and people around him who just loved him. But then the king started to grow really, really jealous and started to hate him and demise him. In fact, tried to kill him. And not just secretly, but like openly. He would chase him around with a spear, trying to spear him to a wall. And, you know, the king was going a little bit crazy over how jealous he actually was, all this envy that was going on. And what was once good, what was once normal for David, started to turn into a, you know, real life hell. And he started to be on the run. We had a, you know, fear for his life. And when he was fearing for his life, he made some horrible, horrible decisions that not only hurt him, but hurt people around him, innocent people around him. And on several occasions when he was on the run, David had several opportunities to take matters into his own hands, to give God a little push in the right direction when it came to King Saul. King Saul was trying to kill him, and David could have had his chance to kill King Saul, but he didn't, because he decided to wait on the Lord. In fact, there's this one time where David had the perfect opportunity to capitalize on King Saul being super vulnerable. And I don't know exactly how to put this, but King Saul was, man, how do you word this right? King Saul was taking a big old poop. King Saul was going to the restroom. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. No, really, King Saul was taking a poop. 1 Samuel 24. You should really read your Bibles. That's in there. But Saul was down with his pants at his ankles, super vulnerable position, and David could have capitalized on it. He could have easily snuck up behind him because King Saul walked into this cave that David was already in. He was in the dark and he was, you know, doing his business, and David could have easily come up behind him and killed him, but he didn't. 1 Samuel 24 verses 8 through 10. Then David went out of the cave and called out to Saul, "My lord, the king." When Saul looked behind him, David bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. He said to Paul, "Why do you listen when men say David is bent on harming you? This day you have seen with your own eyes how the Lord delivered you into my own hands in this cave. Some urged me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not lay my hand on the Lord because he is the Lord's anointed." So again, David is showing like massive respect for his position right now. He's saying, listen, Saul, you're the king right now, but I also have a God who's appointed you in that position right now, and I'm going to honor that. Again, he's waiting on God. It continues and it says, may the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord avenge the wrongs you have done to me, but my hand will not touch you. So again, you see David waiting on the Lord. He says, listen, I had the perfect opportunity to do things my way, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wait for the perfect opportunity when God says that it's time, and he's going to do what he's going to do. And David is learning an important lesson about taking things into your own hands, because taking things in your own hands might feel good, but they don't always end up good. I mean, hence my whole face thing with it bloody and oozy. But this is the thing that we struggle with all the time. And part of the reason that we struggle so much is because there's so much unknown. We want this to happen and we want to see this to pass, but we just don't know when or if it'll even happen. And so we struggle and we want to do things our way. And we say, well, I can take advantage of this opportunity. Is this God's calling for me? Is this what I need to do? Do I need to take this leap? Do I need to stop doing that? And sometimes it's super hard just to wait on the Lord. But in life, it really is always going to be God's will, God's way, and God's time. And that's something we have to remember over and over and over. God's will, God's way, God's time. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean that God isn't working, that he's not moving, that he's not doing something, that he's not loving his people. In fact, there are tons of stories inside of the Bible where you see God, seemingly not doing anything to the person that they're talking about, but he's doing so much. I mean, Joseph is the perfect example that Joseph has no idea why things are happening the way that they're happening in his life, but God is active in every single thing, being sold into slavery, being the king's hand, doing famine, all of this stuff that God is working to bring people back together, to reconcile, to, create something new. He is loving his people. So even when we don't see it, God is still working. So my encouragement for you this week is everything going on in the world to seek after God and continue to seek after God. Don't take things into your own hands, because while taking things into your own hands might feel good, they don't always end up good. It's always God's will, God's way, and God's time. So thank you guys, and be blessed. Bye.